I don't know. I don't know what kind of programming in general is being done by Hollywood studios for interactive, but I think Star Trek lends itself to interactive. Star Trek is a vehicle that fans have been attracted to and have wanted to interact with in one way or another for the last 26 to 27 years. The technology now makes it possible for them to really do that. We've had over the years Star Trek attractions at theme parks around the country, for example, where a small group at a time of young people would be put into Star Trek uniforms, get on a stage and act out a line or two with a group of other actors, and then have themselves injected into a Star Trek videotape that they can take home and show their family. Here I am with Mr. Spock, here I am with Captain Kirk, or whatever, saying this line or that. There I am, that kind of thing. So there's always been, for many years, that kind of desire. Everybody knows that there have been hundreds and hundreds of Star Trek conventions over the years, and people come out to meet and talk about Star Trek and exchange ideas about Star Trek and watch Star Trek episodes and films together over and over again until they know the dialogue well enough to read it back to the TV set. To listen to speakers who have had anything to do with Star Trek. If anybody who's been a visitor on the set of Star Trek has become a celebrity in his hometown. There's a tremendous need to interact with these people because we are presenting a world that touches the imagination. We're presenting a positive future world that a lot of people would like to be in touch with. And I think now the technology makes it possible for them to really feel that they are involved in a very real physical way with the story that's playing itself out in an interactive process. The appeal of entertainment on CD-ROM is the switch from passive to active. Instead of switching channels to see another show, you go to work on this one and change the program, change the course of the event of the plot. From an actor's point of view, it's a process of making it all work through vocal work. We are not involved physically on camera in this particular program. On the other hand, it's a little bit more complicated because each line has to serve, each reading of each line of dialogue has to serve a number of purposes, because the story could diverge from that line on into different directions depending on what the viewer chooses the plot to go to. I think that we have a big advantage in that, having played these characters and having lived with these characters for a long period of time, we tend to know how the character would respond in certain situations. If we were in the process of creating a new character, I think it would be more difficult. I think we'd have to do more research, more study, more discussion about, well, how's the character going to act if he's in trouble? How's the character going to act when he gets out of trouble? We know the answers to those questions. We've been with these characters for a long time. We know the relationships between the characters, the relationships between Spock and McCoy and the captain and Spock, and all the rest of us with Uhura and Scotty and Sulu and Chekhov. We understand what these relationships are all about. They go on like a soft glove. You put it on and you go to work. So I think we have the advantage in that respect over other people who might have to be creating new characters for this medium. It seems to me that the incredible challenges are for the writers, because the writers have to design and develop so many different tracks of the story. When you make a motion picture or an episode of television, you're creating one story track, and that's going to be the story that you tell. In this medium, you're creating several story tracks, and each of those story tracks can branch off into different directions, so it multiplies geometrically. And there's a lot more work to do, starting with the writing, a lot more work to do with the recording and the editing of all this material. It's quite an enormous task, very complicated. I don't know exactly what will be happening in theatrical interactive, But I think certainly in this process, in CD-ROM interactive, it's going to be light years ahead of the theatrical interactive, if it ever happens theatrically. Because I think the cost of doing it theatrically would be too enormous, too enormous. So I think this is the ideal medium for it. I can't say I was really surprised. I thought this has been some time in coming, and certainly as time has come. Our stories lend themselves to this kind of imaginative adventure. The plot lines that can be created in this kind of a process are I think, excitingly obvious. I thought, well, here it is. We've been hearing about all these various means of delivering information, of capturing information on a disk, and the quality moving so quickly, the technology moving so quickly. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised we're here doing it. We seem to be in exactly the right place at the right time, doing exactly the right thing. I would think they'll feed each other. I would think that Star Trek, the original classic episodes as well as the Next Generation episodes, will be running on television for the rest of time that we know, and I would think that the interactive will lead people to be interested in the original episodes and vice versa. I'm not sure about that. I do believe that interactive I do believe that interactive in a purely theatrical situation where people pay a price to walk into a theater and sit down will have certain limitations. I think the cost of producing interactive films, and I think there have been some experiments which have not been too gloriously successful, where audiences vote on how the next scene should be played or how the story should evolve from here. I'm not sure that that's what people want when they pay their $7 or $6 or $5 or $4, whatever they pay, to sit down in the theater and watch a story. I think they do go for a collective experience where everybody experiences the same story. On the other hand, I think it's very exciting in terms of use of computer technology at home, for the interactive we're talking about specifically. I do believe that there are times when I or my children or grandchildren are watching television and flipping through the channels, and you go through now if you have cable television and you subscribe to some services, you might have 20 channels, I guess, or maybe 25 or even 30 channels, and somebody shuts off the TV and says, well, there's nothing on. Amazing. What we're really saying is there's nothing on that captures our imagination tonight. There's nothing on that we really must see. So perhaps what we're looking for is something that we want to do, something that we can affect, that rather than being passive, rather than sitting and watching stuff that somebody says is what we should be seeing tonight. Maybe there's something that we want to get our hands on. Maybe we want to say, well, what would happen if this would go this way? Or what would happen if, let me work with that. Let me explore that. What's hidden in here? What are the secret tracks and avenues in here that I don't know about yet? That's, I think, is very exciting stuff. Very different from just turning on to see what's on. Turning it on to see what you can do with what's on, and what's hidden and what is not immediately obvious but you discover for yourself, I think is a very exciting process. Well, yes, and using very professional visual techniques and using the professional actors who play these roles and guiding them through the adventure and watching them make mistakes that you've led them to and watching them solve problems that you've helped them solve by picking up certain clues and certain evidence, I think is a very exciting new experience. The possibilities for imaginative stories are endless. Much like in the animation business, and yet even far more complex and credible. As a person in my business, you become very much aware that anytime you create a story idea that has any imagination or size or canvas or scope to it, you are also creating budgetary issues. You're creating costs. Anytime you say, well, there are 1,000 people listening to a person do a speech and you want to shoot that scene, those 1,000 people are going to cost you a lot of money. So somebody in the budget department comes down and says, can you do with 100? Or can you do with 50? And everything starts to shrink down to what one can afford. Well, to draw The animation for the 1,000 may not cost much more, if anything more, than drawing the 50 and having them replicated 20 times, and you've got your 1,000 people. So the opportunity to tell larger stories, more exciting, more complex stories, to give more texture, to give more scope, more size, more mystery, more magic. The opportunities are endless. It just depends on how vivid the imagination is and how much energy you have to put into it as opposed to money to put into it. So in that respect, it's very exciting. You can do stories, you can develop ideas that might have been much too costly to do before this medium came along. I've had a good time with Star Trek and Spock over the years, and I consider myself very lucky to have become connected with a project that has had the lifespan that Star Trek has had. Did we know when we were making the original series that we would now be, 27, 28 years after going on the air, that we would still be around working the Star Trek territory? No, certainly not. Couldn't have predicted that. But I did know, I think I can honestly say, I did know when we were making the original episodes that there was a durable substance to what we were doing, because the stories had a certain kind of durability, a certain kind of integrity. We were dealing with issues which are eternal issues, not simply issues of today or this week. And we were not, I don't think, trendy. We were doing sort of classic ideas, dealing with large classic thematic ideas, social issues, territorial issues, issues of population, issues of hate, greed, vengeance, the very large passions that came down to us from the Greek drama, from ancient times. So I did feel that the stuff that we were doing was durable, as compared to some other television series of the day, which were more topical and maybe even hotter and more exciting and more popular at the time, but not anywhere near as durable. And for that reason, I find myself not surprised that we're still doing it. I'm very pleased that I've been connected with something that had that kind of longevity. We are now, in a way, seeing the same kind of technological revolution in entertainment that happened when sound came in and replaced talkies. It's just as great a step forward, greater even. Because you could sit and enjoy a movie even before sound, even before talkies. But now I think the changes, the advancements are by great leaps and bounds today, as opposed to being able to walk instead of crawl. We are now able to take gigantic leaps technologically. To see some of the things that are being done in special effects these days by a lot of companies, instead of perhaps just one or two companies that are experimenting with and crudely performing certain kinds of what we at one time thought were wonderful special effects. Now there are a lot of companies that are capable of doing it very quickly. They're mastering these techniques. Computers have given us the power, the electronic power, to do enormous accomplishments technologically. So I think we really are moving very, very quickly towards whatever the mind can imagine that we can accomplish.